Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Michael Moore. I'm the Director of Transportation here for Raleigh. Thank you for coming this morning. Very excited to have everyone out for an event, our Go Green event. Candidly, I was not the first choice to be the moderator today, but Hulk and Kermit the Frog were both busy, so the Go Green aspect of it, you're stuck with me. So. We're here today to see how the city is working to achieve our goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Changing how we move around the city is the first step in reducing those emissions and promoting a greener future. The city's broad strategies are designed to affect community equity, our resilience, and our safety through increased mobility and access. I want to welcome everyone here to Greg Poole Jr. All Faiths Chapel at Dorothea Dix Park. I want to thank you, particularly to the Parks Department and to the Dix Conservancy for making this facility available to us. It is a beautiful facility, and if you're watching on television and you haven't been here to see this, it's a remarkable facility, and I sincerely suggest you come up and visit sometimes when you get the chance. I also want to thank a number of departments that helped put our event on today. CAMPO, our Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, our Department of Transportation, our Go Raleigh staff, the Office of Sustainability, Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources, Planning and Development, the Raleigh Fire Department, the Raleigh Police Department, and Raleigh Water. We're here today to celebrate the addition of 5 electric buses to Go Raleigh's fleet and support our goal of reducing community-wide greenhouse gas emissions 80% by 2050. It's a very ambitious goal, but with efforts like this, we know we can make it. By 2023, Go Raleigh's fleet will be 70% zero or near zero emissions. Go Raleigh's first 5 buses were manufactured here in the United States by Proterra, who are headquartered in California and in South Carolina. So right down the road, our neighbors are making great strides in electrification of our fleets, and we're really excited about that. The funding for these buses were made possible through the Federal Transit Administration, who are great partners and have similar goals to help reduce greenhouse gases across the country, and we're really thankful to them for the contributions that they've made. The other part of that is you, the voters, who also made this possible through your vote to approve the Wake Transit tax. That half-cent sales tax approved in 2016 make a lot of these innovations that we're seeing in transportation, particularly in our bus fleet, in our BRT development, and our commuter rail development possible, and we're really grateful and thankful to you for that. I also want to thank some corporate partners that we have here today. Duke Energy, the Federal Transit Administration, Green State Power, IBI Group, INT Innovations in Transportation Incorporated, Siemens, and lastly, Proterra, our bus manufacturer. And I'd like to invite Josh Helm, who is our Regional Director of Sales for the Southeast, to the podium to say a few words. So, Josh?
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Appreciate the introduction. My name is Josh Helm. I'm the Regional Sales Director for Proterra in the Southeast. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and very excited to bring 5 of our zero-emissions ZX5 buses to the city of Raleigh in Go Raleigh. So, in honor of our partnership and the deployment of these buses, I wanted to present this plaque to Mr. Moore and Go Raleigh for the buses, and we're excited about the future here. Thank you.
So this is an exciting time for the city of Raleigh. The city and the Department of Transportation are working with every project to make Raleigh a safer and healthier city while we reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and improve services. This year, Raleigh released its Community Climate Action Plan, rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? Community Climate Action Plan, which lays out a roadmap to achieving our City Council's goal of a reduction of 80% in greenhouse gas emissions by the year 2050. Roughly 42% of Raleigh's greenhouse gas emissions come from transportation. So changing how we get around our city will contribute a great deal to achieving this goal and is an imperative that we all have to follow. This means moving away from high-emitting vehicles to low and non-emissions technology, getting out of our cars and onto bus, on bikes, and on foot, and making our streets safer for all means of transportation. Our new electric buses are a big part of this, transitioning our fleet away from diesel fuels will not only reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, but also improve air quality and reduce traffic noise. Our work in the Transportation Department is connected with the work of all the city's other departments in achieving our climate action goal, and will take our work across our organization and on the part of residents and visitors to all of Raleigh. So today we have a really great opportunity to hear from a lot of the leaders in climate action here in the city. In today's panel discussion, we hope to highlight some of the things we're working on and on some things that the community can do to help reduce emissions from transportation. This panel will discuss our partnership with the Office of Sustainability and part of the rollout of the Community Climate Action Plan. You can also find more information on the Climate Action Plan at raleighnc.gov/climate-action, or visit the sustainability table outside to learn more. And at the end of this panel discussion this morning, please stick around for a few minutes for our presentation of the 2020 Environmental Award for Climate Action and Transportation from Raleigh's Environmental Advisory Board. We were unable to do this last year due to COVID, and we want to take the opportunity that we're gathered today to be able to do that. So now, please join me in welcoming today's panelists. So TJ Lynch serves as an assistant director for the City of Raleigh's Public Utilities Department, or newly dubbed Raleigh Water, and has roughly 29 years of experience in the wastewater field. During his time in the field, he's earned numerous certifications and awards, and his responsibilities include managing the operation and maintenance of 3 resource recovery facilities, 118 pump stations, 5 odor control stations, 2,600 miles of sanitary sewer, and a growing reuse distribution system and a compliance lab. So please join me in welcoming TJ. Also on our panel is Nick Neptune. Nick is the chairman and president of Oaks and Spokes, Raleigh's cycling and sustainable transportation advocacy organization, and a huge partner for the city of Raleigh and for our Department of Transportation. He's co-founder and managing partner of Trailblaze Development, a sustainable design and equitable development firm based in Raleigh. And he's commissioner and vice chairman with the city's Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Commission. In 2020, Nick was named among Raleigh Magazine's 30 in their 30s feature for his lifetime commitment to civic-minded work and advocacy, and is one who is working hard for positive change to make life better for everyone in the city. Let's welcome Nick, and thank you for being here. Unfortunately, we advertised that we would have a member here today from Raleigh's Planning and Development Department, but unfortunate set of circumstances have prevented Bynum Walter from joining us. Fortunately, we have probably the best pinch hitter in the game, and we brought Megan Anderson in. Megan is our Director of Sustainability in Raleigh's Office of Sustainability, and she's able to step up to the plate and help today. She's been with the city for 6 years and has a deep background in environmental science and environmentally conscious economic development. So, Megan, thank you for stepping up, and sorry to butcher your curricula vitae there, but thank you, and please help me in welcoming Megan. So I'm going to join them over here, and we have a few questions that we are going to share, and then we're going to open this up to you so you can ask your questions of this panel as well. So Nick, let's start with you. How can alternate modes of transportation make Raleigh more connected?
Thank you, Michael. How can alternate modes of transportation make Raleigh more connected? I love this question. I love this question because this question to me is a question about access and equity. When we talk about making improvements in connectivity within the city, around the city, we're talking about expanding access and equity and opportunity. In other words, every time the city of Raleigh, every time we as residents vote to invest in improvements and in expansion in our public transit system, much like with these e-buses right now, much like we're doing with the BRT, the bus rapid transit system that's coming, much like we're doing with our bike share program through Citrix Cycle, much like we're doing with the scooters. In all seriousness, we are expanding access, opportunity, and options for people, human beings, to get around the city, to get from home to work, get from home to play at a park, to get from home out into the community to connect with each other. That's how alternate modes of transportation make Raleigh more connected. Thank you. Thank you.
So Megan, I'm going to put you on the spot. So we know that you produced and have published the Community Climate Action Plan, and we know that there's a focus on climate equity in that plan. Can you talk with us a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah, I could talk about this all day, and I just want to say we're so excited to have that. We know that there's a lot going on in the community, and it's been a crazy past year and a half now as well, so all the things that we know are important are more coming to a head. So in the design of the Community Climate Action Plan, let me just start and say, Michael mentioned we have a city council set a goal of an 80% reduction by 2050. Greenhouse gas mitigation is very important and central to the plan, but just as important are equity and resiliency. And so we built all three of those things into the plan, and we're thinking about high impact in all three of those areas. And so in talking with staff and talking with the community and putting the plan together, we had to figure out what that looked like. And so we often say that as we're working on strategies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, the how we do that is going to be very important, and how we do that needs to include equity and resilience. So when we're thinking about equity, it's really the folks in the community that are most vulnerable to climate impacts are those, honestly, a lot of times contributing the least as well. And so with that in mind, the way that we design our programs and how we're thinking about that is really important. And before I talk a little bit more about that, I'll just say the city is actually embarking in a lot more intentional equity work in general as well, which has been super helpful. A lot of folks in the room are on the equity team. We have a new Department of Equity, which was an Office of Equity. We're really amping all that up, so that's all been helpful as we've been rolling out the plan and talking internally. And again, it's not just about us in the city and what we're doing. We are looking at racial equity toolkits and a lot of ways to think and ask ourselves the questions as we're doing our work. Also in the community, as we roll out this plan, we have an equity impact matrix in the plan. And so when you look at that plan, there's a chapter on greenhouse gas mitigation, a chapter on resilience, a chapter on equity, and then a lot of other things. So you can break it up if you guys want to have a book club. But with the equity impact matrix, it's basically a way for us to ask ourselves, when we look at all the strategies, it's kind of a confusing chart, and I'll have to give Nicole Goddard in the audience here in our office a lot of credit. We adapted it from something we'd seen in the state of Georgia that they'd done to evaluate their strategies for climate work with an equity lens. And so it's a first glance at how you can implement strategies in a more equitable way. So it's red, yellow, green. So it's kind of, is this going to have a positive impact on equity? Maybe is this going to have something that we should be taking a look at? It could be a negative impact. It could not be. You really need to be careful when you're implementing. Or this could be a negative impact. So we need to think about how we're implementing this to not let that happen and mitigate that along the way. We need to do all of our strategies, but we just need to be more careful in that. So that is just a first glance for anyone. So one thing with the plan is we have this 80% reduction by 2050 goal, and it's a kind of crazy, fun, scary place to be as cities when we have these big community-wide goals that we can't control all the outcomes. It's a community-wide plan because we need everybody to help us reach those goals. So the city's taking a lot of actions, and I can talk more about those examples later on. We want to show leadership. We want to set a good example. We want to set foundational steps for the community. But we also need everybody in the community to be thinking as well. So that equity impact matrix is a way for anyone that's taking a look at the strategies in the plan that are going to have high impact on how you can also have high impact on equity. And I think I'll stop there, but I actually have some examples, a couple examples of what we're doing to set some foundations for that, and I can share those when we talk a little bit more later.
Thank you. So, TJ, I got to ask you this. You're a water guy. What are you doing at a transportation event?
I really have no idea, Michael.
Well, we appreciate you being here.
You invited me, I came, the boss said be here. So, no, seriously, we started visioning and planning for a project at least 10 years ago that's finally coming to fruition today. We call it our bioenergy project. And what that is a conversion of the way we treat biosolids at the resource recovery facility from an energy consuming type process to an energy producing process. We're switching to a really old technology called anaerobic digestion. It's been around for a long, long time in the wastewater business. And it produces a methane gas that we capture and that we can clean and inject into Dominion Energy's pipeline. And then sell that gas and reuse that gas in our city bus fleet. We, in our anaerobic digesters, will be able to produce enough gas to fuel 50 buses on a daily basis. So it's a tremendous amount of gas, and it's a huge success story, in my opinion, a big win for the city, because, like I said, we go from being an energy consumer with an aerobic process. By switching to an anaerobic process, we become a net positive energy producer and are able to reuse that gas in a really beneficial way.
If you don't mind, can I brag on transportation and Raleigh Water really
Please.
quick? Okay, so I just wanted to say, so we had a climate energy action plan 10 or more years ago now, and this was kind of a pipe dream idea that Raleigh Water put into that plan, and they made it happen. And it was not easy, and lots of stars had to align, and they worked really hard. So definitely want to give them credit. One of the first in the country to happen. Really cool. We're really excited. And with that, I want to say, also, we know when we're climate supporters that nobody wants natural gas anymore. We want to move away from that. But I have to say, this is a very unique situation where we're always going to be supporting the community and cleaning the water, and this process needs to happen, and they have found a way to reuse that into a very sustainable way and then put it in our buses. So this is unique, where I know we're moving to electric, but we also have this really cool opportunity with Raleigh Water to do this in a very sustainable way, in a way that's reusing something that they'd have to find another solution for. So I just want to give them credit and then share and have you guys help us tell the community, because we keep talking about how this is different than other natural gas solutions out there.
Thank you, Nate.
Thank you, Megan. So Nick, next question's for you. So you serve on our Bike Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and thank you for doing that. I know sometimes that feels like a thankless job, but we're really grateful for the work you do on that group. So how does Bpac's outreach and community engagement committee contribute to efforts on climate action and encouraging sustainable transportation?
You know, Bpac, as with, I think, all of the city's boards and commissions, you know, we're really here to amplify the voices of our residents. And so what I mean by that is, you know, I think increasingly people realize, they recognize they're being beaten over the head with these reports, these studies, you know, telling us the world is on fire. The world is on fire. The world is on fire. And where it's not on fire, it is drenched or dried out. And that's the truth of it. Like, really, I mean, we've known about climate change since at least the 60s, 70s, right? You had scientists, you know, starting to raise the alarm back then. Now, it wasn't until about 1990 that we started publishing these, you know, reports every so often from, like, you know, global reports where people are reviewing, you know, thousands of studies, okay, and just trying to call the global community to get it together as it relates to our impact on our environment, okay? And these reports over the years have become more and more and more dire including the one that just came out this month. The timing of this panel is incredible to me. You know, I'm about to fall off this stage. I'm so knocked out by it. But it's the truth of it. Just like a week ago, you've got this brand new report from the United Nations letting us know, y'all don't understand. If we do not get it together right now, and what does that mean? What does that mean? That means, in all seriousness, just stop emitting these greenhouse gases, which is trapping all this heat, resulting in the world being on fire, resulting in all these weather-related disasters, catastrophes. Literally, the United States has declared like a river out west dried up. We're rationing water. Out west, it's on fire. You know, increasingly we see here on the East Coast these hurricanes, right? I mean, you know, Katrina was just years ago. So I think my point is, you know, sometimes as individuals, as people, caught up with all of this, I think it's so overwhelming. I mean, it's so much. It's like, what can I do? And the truth of it is, you know, from one generation to the next, we are confronted with crisis. And from one generation to the next, we have found new solutions, new ideas. We have found a way to innovate through science, technology, through each other. It begins with us. And so it means a lot to me through our service with the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission, and of course, through my advocacy work with Oaks and Spokes, to encourage people. Get on a bike. The vast majority of your trips, I mean, it's documented and studied. The vast majority of your trips, you could probably make it on a bike or hop on a bus. So here again, you know, this really circles back to that original question about, you know, making improvements in our public transit system. You know, the BRT, that's coming. Hopefully maybe a little light rail situation might come down the pike, if we're lucky, between here and Durham and Chapel Hill and places all across the state and the Southeast. The point being, you know, as an individual, every time you choose to go for a walk to the store, every time you choose to ride your bike to work, I'll give you a good example. This is a real life example. You know, I work in a co-working space. And there's a young lady in this co-working space. She's a social media manager, very talented, very lovely lady. She just got married. Congratulations, Hannah. And, you know, she would drive into work all the time. She would drive into the co-working space all the time. She lives a mile away. Now, Hannah would see me, you know, bringing my bike in to the co-working space, you know. And at some point, I noticed she started biking in. You know, we had a conversation about it. She's like, you know what? I kept seeing you bike in. You know, you live a couple blocks away. I live a mile away. That's not that far. It's good for my health. And, you know, it's good for the environment. I'm like, yes! Yes, Hannah, yes! In other words, you know, it's like, don't lose faith in the power of your influence. The decisions you make have real impact on yourself, on your health, on your environment, and on each other. And through Bpac, we're in position to amplify your voice. And it means a lot to me to be a part of it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Nick. I think you know why we have Nick on this panel, right? So,
Yeah.
so it's great to have passionate people, and thank you again. Thank you for your service on the committee. So, TJ, so Nick just talked about like lots of choices, and what some of the things we do in government is try to make those choices easier for folks. So, tell me, what role does CNG buses and RNG buses have in people, you know, in helping people make choices? What role do they play in our climate action goals?
Well, they have a significant role. When you think about, well, you know, just the conversion alone from biodiesel or diesel to CNG is a huge benefit to the city. What is it? Something like 20 metric tons annually per bus, just associated with that conversion. So, I mean, I think that is really important, and honestly, Raleigh Water couldn't be happier to be a part of that. That reduction in carbon footprint for the city's operation is huge, and when you combine that with what we're doing with this bioenergy project, it significantly moves the needle on the city's carbon emissions. So fully support what Nick was saying. People, get on buses, ride them. When we can make that happen, certainly it has an environmental benefit that we can't pass up. And I think he's spot on with being an example. You start riding the bus, maybe your neighbor will start riding the bus, and so on. So I think that's a very good point.
Thank you. Megan, similar question. What other initiatives are sustainability working on to help decrease our carbon footprint? What are the things that you've got on the books and not on the horizon for us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I'll broaden that a little bit and say, so again, like I mentioned, all these things we're trying to reduce carbon emissions and also focus on equity and resilience. And following, Nick's lead, I was fist pumping in my head for mentioning the report, and that's the kind of spirit and passion that we're, have so many people in the community that are working on this, so thank you for that. So many things. There's so many things in that plan. A lot of this stuff is very complex, right? We haven't solved it yet. We don't know how to fix equity. We don't know how to fix resiliency. We don't know how to fix these things, but we've got to work together. And so the plan is intentionally written to be broad in those strategies so everyone can see themselves in them. So the city is taking those on, and we have a lot of things that we're doing within those strategies. Same thing, if you're an individual, if you're a business, if you're an organization, if you're a family, if you're a school, please look at that plan. There's ways for you to get involved and figure that out. We're trying to set foundational steps that help. So one example of that would be we have a transportation electrification study. When we look at a greenhouse gas mitigation strategies, the number one way we can really reduce our emissions is in energy use in our buildings, everywhere we live, work, and play. And with that in mind, a lot of that is going to be Duke Energy getting cleaner energy for us here in North Carolina over time. We're working on that and talking, and a lot of folks are working on that. When we look at strategies we can have an impact on, number one way we can is actually transportation electrification. And we want to think about from an equity perspective, but when you think about transportation electrification, very close second in greenhouse gases is all those people, single occupancy folks driving in their cars all the time. We're very heavy. Michael and I talk about this a lot. When we did this study, we also said, are we really just talking about keeping people in their cars electric versus that? We know it's kind of like always somebody's going to be in their car, whether it's a bus or whatever, we're always going to have that. Let's make it much cleaner. So as that energy is getting cleaner from Duke Energy, we need to get us out of diesel, gas-powered vehicles into electric. So there's any number of ways that we can tackle that, and I could go on forever. And we've got Greg outside at our booth. I'll say go talk to him. He's our resident expert in the city. Oh, he's right over here. You can wave, Greg. Hey, Greg knows a lot about this. So go talk to him a little bit more. I'll just mention quickly with equity in mind. Right now, the electric market really doesn't feel like it's for everybody. And so we're trying to think about what that looks like. Why are there not more people of color driving electric vehicles? Why are they not affordable for other folks? And so thinking about that, even strategies for bringing in small business. As we're thinking about where we roll this out, small businesses, small minority businesses, let's think about how that can help them when folks are stopping to charge their cars and being in close proximity. So there's ways to think about that from a business perspective. Let's try to think about that from an equity perspective. Quickly, a couple other examples. We have a project going on with Partners for Environmental Justice. Nick mentioned how we're having a lot more storms. There's a lot of climate vulnerabilities. Out west, we have no water. Here, we actually sometimes don't have enough water. TJ could tell you all about that, but a lot of times we have way too much all at once. And so flooding is one of our biggest climate issues, and a lot of folks in the community are most affected by that. They're in low-lying areas. They're in areas that are lower income, and a lot of times. And Partners for Environmental Justice is a great partner to us. We're working on a watershed learning network program and lots of other things to help empower folks in the community to understand those issues and understand how to work with government, how to work with their partners, do their own projects in their own houses and neighborhoods and organizations. That's a project we're working on. And that can also be a model for the future on thinking about how we work in communities successfully on other issues related to that. We're doing an urban heat study mapping right now. We just had over 200 of you volunteers come out at the last minute to help us map urban heat all over the community. That's another big issue. You're hearing a lot about this year in the news. When we get that data back, we're going to think about mitigation strategies across the community. It could look different depending on where that heat is. It can be up to 20 degrees hotter on a day. So if you think about it, it's 100 degrees. It could be 120 in your neighborhood that day. And a lot of folks that work outside, going to school, trying to ride their bike, there's a lot of people that could be really affected by that. Maybe they don't have air conditioning, and there's all the other things that impact that as well. On a larger scale, I won't go into this in detail, but you've got all the experts here in the room. A lot of work around equitable development around transportation. That's a big group that Michael is a part of, and a lot of folks in transportation in a lot of different departments working on these really complex issues around, we need to get more dense because that helps with climate change. And then some folks kind of don't want that. And how do you fit the buses in? How do you get people walking to where they want to go versus it's a very complex thing to figure out. And then the politics, like Nick mentioned, what are we voting for? How do we want our community to form and why? Lots of things going on there and lots of great people working on those kind of topics. I will just say I could go on forever. There's tons more, but go see our sustainability booth outside and we can give you lots more examples of some of the work we're doing to try to set that foundation and think about high impact and ways that we can then involve the community to take impact or break down a barrier for you to be able to take action where you live, work, or play.
So I have one more question before we open this up to you. TJ, we're sitting probably 2,000 feet from one of the most popular things in all of Raleigh, which are the sunflowers. Tell us a little bit about what other things you're working on in terms of things like solar arrays and biodiesel, and tell us a little bit about the story of the sunflowers.
Sure, Michael. I'm very fortunate to work for a utility that I feel like is very progressive. Raleigh Water is a very progressive utility when we compare ourselves all across the nation and even internationally. We've seen some trends, and we compare ourselves. We look at others, but we do a lot of fun stuff too. We do a lot of cool stuff when we can. I think it's important to remember when you think about the sustainability stool. One of the legs of that sustainability stool is the economic leg, right? So the things that we do have to make sense because we're spending your money. Ratepayers pay for the water and the sewer system. So we want to be mindful of that, and so we do things that try to keep rates down. An example of that would be sunflowers. We started growing sunflowers, 7, 8, 10 years ago at the Neuse River plant because this is where we apply our biosolids. We apply the biosolids on the fields. They have nutrients in those biosolids. So we plant a crop that takes up those nutrients so that the nutrients don't go to groundwater, don't ultimately go into the Neuse River. And in that process, you have a crop. And so you can choose what kind of crops you grow. You can grow crops that are just used for animal feed, or you could grow crops that produce a byproduct like biodiesel. And so we've experimented, and one of the experiments that we did was with sunflowers. We planted sunflowers at the Neuse River plant. We planted a couple of fields of them, and it just so happened that we planted them, and this wasn't an intentional thing, but we planted them close enough to the greenway that they were visible. And as soon as we did that, that whole sunflower thing took off like wildfire. We could not keep people out of the fields at the wastewater plant. And that's not necessarily a good thing. We're applying biosolids out here. So we have fences and signs, and we had people showing up with couches and just all kinds of things. Trust me, it's crazy what happens in the sunflower fields. Anyway, so we've experimented with sunflowers. We've experimented with canola. We actually partnered with the state and we produced this pilot biodiesel unit. Basically, we can demonstrate, we can take it from the seed all the way to the diesel end product. in this trailer that we have. Now, it's not a high volume type trailer, but we can certainly do it for demonstration purposes, and we do for educational purposes. But once we harvest those seeds, we do have them biodiesel produced out of it, and then we use that biodiesel in our farm tractors, and we use it in our own equipment. So you got a full cycle there. Other things that we've done, we're always looking at efficiency of our operations. When your electric bill is about $250,000 a month, there are opportunities to find savings. And so anytime we can reduce horsepower, or we can find more efficient electric motors, or the different things that we do along the way, we implement those. But we also, we have a lot of land. And so we have the benefit of being able to lease land for solar arrays. And so both of our major water and wastewater facilities have solar arrays installed there. We've leased that land for the solar array, and we've purchased one of our solar arrays. So we own and lease in terms of solar arrays. So we just do whatever we can that we think, because we like to demonstrate to our folks that when we work on the wastewater side of the house, you're an environmentalist. I mean, that's our job, is to protect the environment. If you didn't have a resource recovery facility or a wastewater treatment plant there, you think about what that would do to the Neuse River. What would be the quality of that water, that stream? Our folks intercept that, and they turn a waste product into and completely recycle and turn it into reusable products. We turn it into clean water. We capture the biomass, and that becomes fertilizer. And also we harvest the energy from that to produce biogas, and ultimately we'll fuel 50 buses a day with it. So pretty happy about that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Again, you can see things large and small, steps big and little, that all go together to make a big difference. So with that, we'd like to turn it over to your questions. So Greg and Nicole both have microphones, and they can come to you. And
Hi, I'm Karen Renge. I haven't seen a lot of you in a long time, and I'm on the Raleigh Transit Authority. First of all, thanks for everything you're doing. It's been great, and I'm thrilled about the electric buses. Many years ago, I lobbied for them, so I'm really happy that it's finally happening. A couple of things that have come to mind, and Megan, this I guess is mostly for you, in terms of things that you're promoting about what the city's doing. I'm assuming that you're also including promotion about Raleigh's Rainwater Rewards program and the opportunity for building rain gardens as a way to help deal with flooding and improving our water quality. I actually am designing those now in my new career in landscape design, and I did it because I learned about what the city had been doing, and that's a great opportunity that Raleigh is really a leader across the state because we have a very, very generous matching program for that. The other thing I wanted to mention was, and this is not a Raleigh initiative, but in terms of your point about equity, we recently put solar panels on our roof, and I always thought we could never afford it. And now with the federal tax credits, and because the cost of solar, that I know you all know this, has come down so much, it's so affordable. And even, in fact, I compared our power bill from July from this year to last year, and our power bill went down over $100 comparing the months. And so basically, instead of paying Duke Power, we're paying the solar loan company. So for me, really, this is something that could be affordable for almost anybody who has a lot of sun on their roof. And I'm thrilled that the city is doing what it can for solar. I know that's been a goal, but that is something, even though it's on the city initiative, that I think we can really promote from an equity perspective.
Yeah, no, thank you. So hopefully everybody heard some of the great things that Karen mentioned. Karen, thank you for all the work with the city over the years, for sure. And thank you for doing a lot of things to set a good example in your own house and life as well. So she mentioned a couple of things. She mentioned the Raleigh Rainwater Rewards program. So that is an amazing program. And Karen mentioned how our stormwater folks, I'll have to say, are really top notch. So we have such an issue here with flooding and stormwater. We're the capital city. We really try to set an example. Wayne Miles runs our stormwater program, and actually I was just talking to him yesterday quite a while about some of this stuff again. So rainwater rewards, you can get up to 90% of your project paid for that will help mitigate stormwater on your property. So like I mentioned before, those folks in our community that are most vulnerable, a lot of them live in low-lying areas, they're flooding. We all are taking part. Wherever you live, we are the ones that are living up higher in different areas as well. Everybody needs to be contributing, and the water is falling everywhere too. So take a look. Anywhere you are, go ahead and take a look at the website, depending on where you are, and if it's worse, you can get up to 90% of that project paid for, which is a great way to incentivize this. I will say in North Carolina, when you see climate plans across the country, there's a carrot and a stick approach, and we don't have as many of those stick approaches, basically, where we can regulate things. So we have a lot of incentive programs, and we need all of you to take advantage, because we in North Carolina can't just change the way and say, hey, we're gonna raise our energy efficiency for buildings and you have to build to this standard, or we are requiring you to put this stormwater infrastructure, and those are hard things in North Carolina to do, so we need all of you to take advantage of these incentives and do things like that. There's a ton of other things that Stormwater is doing and they offer. They love coming out, so invite them out to your properties and ask them what you can do. They would love to do that and help us. It's gonna take all these, it's gonna take everybody to change that. And then just really quickly, Karen, yeah, as well, with solar, she mentioned she did it on her house. There's a lot of developers out there too. They would love to come for free, tell you what you could do on your house, crunch the numbers for you. You don't have to do it, but you can at least know what's possible as well. So, great examples of how you can take action in your own life, and a lot of free resources out there to help you do that.
Thank you, Megan. We've got time for probably one more question. Sorry to be a little short, but we're trying to be efficient here today. Yes, sir.
Thank you. We've heard some great stories about what you're doing with Go Raleigh Transit and with Raleigh Water. These are amazing technologies. What is the city's strategies for the rest of its fleet, whether it involves vehicles or even scooters or bikes? Can you talk a little bit about those plans?
So the question, if I make sure I get this right, so the question is we've talked a lot about Raleigh Water, we've talked a lot about the Go Raleigh and that fleet. What are we doing with the rest of the city's fleet? Yeah. So,
We could all probably talk to that.
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah.
Want to say a few words, or I can start, and then you two jump in.
Okay.
So,
Sounds good. And I think Nick can opine
Oh,
on
yeah,
what we're doing with scooter,
Uh-huh.
the sort of reintroduction of scooters and citric cycle into the city mix, if you will. So.
I'll just quickly say, so we have our own vehicle fleet in the city, and so like I said with our climate plan, we want to set a good example so other fleets know they can do the same thing, and these guys right here have a ton of fleet in there, so we talk about this a lot. We actually have a brand new vehicle fleet manager we just hired from California, and so Greg and I are really excited to work with him because he's done a lot of EV transitions for a lot of cities all across the country. Great guy, so we're working really closely with him. We have lots of goals around. We have a great alternative fuel fleet right now, and we want to now take that to the next step and transition to EVs. So lots of different things that you have to think about. It's very complex in some ways when you're thinking about, we want to be creative as well. So we probably don't want to be in the market in the city of owning all the EV charging stations around the city. We want the private market to also, pick this up as well as these changes happen. But we can be strategic about where we can maybe share some of that, and we can own it and then have it available for the community at the same time. So we're thinking creatively too about, it is kind of crazy to think that all of we're based around having gas-powered vehicles, and so there's a lot of things that need to change as we make this transition for our own fleets and all of us personally. And so with that in mind, that infrastructure is really where we have to spend the time. Lots of things. We're going to have a sustainable business toolkit that comes out here soon that's for the community of any size businesses to kind of think about too, and within that there'll be a lot of transportation resources, and we'll be talking about electric vehicles as well. So I'll stop there, but lots of good resources if you have fleets that you know of where you work. Happy to chat with you about what we're doing in the city and how that might relate to what you do. And EV Ready Playbook is going to be coming out that also has a lot of good resources. So that's one thing, and then you guys might have
TJ?
Yeah, I would just say, I mean, it's a challenge in converting a fleet. Not only are you trying to convert the opinions of your own staff who feel strongly about what they've been using. That diesel engine's been running for 5 or 10 years, and it's always pulled this trailer great. And because we use a lot of heavy equipment, you'll see that. I mean, I'm sure you all see that in the streets. We're out there with a lot of heavy equipment, and so for us, it's about the development of that technology. I think that as electric vehicles get better and better and better, and there's more capability, we certainly will infuse those at every opportunity. So I really think that's really the key for us is, I think that we're a bit conservative in that we want to make sure, or we want to see this work. We want somebody else to use it first so we can learn from them to make sure that we're not just throwing money out there and wasting it because that tool now doesn't do the job for us that we needed it to do. I think that we're a little bit slower just because of that, because we need to be mindful of how we spend those funds, but the desire is there, and we see that push in the city, and I know when we go through our budget process and new vehicles are being replaced, that question is always asked, can this vehicle be replaced with an electric vehicle? Can it do the job? So those are the things that we're building into our processes, if you will, and I think you're going to see a much higher percentage of those going forward.
And Nick, talk to us about how that electrification of just like micromobility fits into that whole city ecosystem of transportation.
Absolutely, and thank you. And I feel like I've been set up nicely because there's a comment here made about, trying to sort of shift the culture a bit with, the staff and folks you're working with to take on the e-vehicles, and they've been so accustomed to diesel-powered this and gas-powered that, and et cetera. And it really does begin, as we mentioned earlier, it begins with you. It begins with us. It begins with society and culture realizing, we all have a role to play at home, at work, in every capacity. And so the city, through its partnership with Bowegan, we have invested in a number, numerous bike share stations across the city. And I mean, you've seen, I think we started to onboard the program, if I'm not mistaken. I would love a correction or a clarification if so. But I think we just started to onboard the program in 2019. And,
Right.
It was almost just like we could see the future because the moment we hit the pandemic, you talk about ridership with the bike share program, with the scooters and everything else. I mean, it just skyrocketed. We were all outside. We had to get out of the house, before we lost our minds. And, folks getting on to our greenways, getting out to our parks, we could see it. You could see it in real time, just ridership levels, skyrocketing. And, the city has a micro mobility manager, very talented woman, Barbara. Barbara, I don't know if she's here right now, but I think she was outside earlier. She's just a terrific, a colleague and friend here who's, overseeing the program and the expansion. I know the city will be expanding, I think, maybe up to 3. We're going to see 3 more bike share stations come online here in the next, I think, year or so. And then, of course, in the private sector, I know that there are, again, folks, just sort of just shifting the paradigm a bit, just sort of, shifting that perspective within a development community, making investments in bike share programs. They'll build out a property, maybe a mixed-use commercial property, and on that property they'll install a bike share system, knowing that we are using it. And we includes all ages, all abilities, young, old, black, white, in between. We all have a role to play. If you care, if you want to contribute from wherever you sit, from wherever you stand, this is a very easy way to do so. Making that choice to get from home to work or from home to a park by walking, by biking, or by taking an e-bus, by buying an e-vehicle, by even enjoying a more plant-based diet. Simple choices. These simple choices have real impacts. And the more of us who participate in that way, well, increasingly, society at large, our politics at large, our economy at large will reflect it. Because all that other stuff, these abstract, concepts, it's all a reflection of us, people, human beings. You talk about the market, that's us. You talk about government, that's us. You talk about corporations, it's us. If you want to see that change yourself first. Start with you. And then you talk about advocacy. Advocacy is about using your voice. Using your voice. Using your voice. Getting out there. Talking to your friends. Talking to your elected officials. Tell them what you want to see. They represent you. They should. You know what I'm saying? I could go on, but I should probably, we know. We talk about this all the time. And I think, there's sort of this, sort of hedging and, look. We have real ideas and real solutions right now. Making your home more energy efficient. That's real. You can do that today. Talking to your folks at work, making the office more energy efficient. Again, these are real actions that we as people, human beings, we can take today. So, I think it's important that we reaffirm that we do have choices we can make as we get out there, as we live, as we work, and we play in the city of Raleigh. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, join me in thanking our panelists today. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you again, everybody, for coming today. Really excited to have everybody here. Again, I'm Megan Anderson, Head of Sustainability for the city. So, as many of you know, we rolled out our Community Climate Action Plan that I've been talking about, and everybody's hard at work implementing that plan. We set our goal for an 80% reduction by 2050, and that plan, hopefully you guys remember. I'm just going to cover it really quickly because it's going to matter when we give this award out. It focuses on actions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions while also building community resilience and addressing climate equity. So transportation and land use strategies are really important, as you've heard today, for us to really reduce our emissions and address those other issues. So again, please go visit our sustainability staff outside to learn more about this and all the other tables to hear more about those specific examples. So the Office of Sustainability, we are the staff liaisons to the Environmental Advisory Board, which is another board that serves the city on environmental issues, just as Nick is on our Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Board. So the EAB, the Environmental Advisory Board, EAB, they actually have their work plan built around the Climate Action Plan and also build their environmental awards around that as well. So today, we would like to award our Transportation Award from 2020, and to do that, we have two of our wonderful leaders on that group. So Grant Smith is going to be up here on stage. He was our 2020 Environmental Advisory Board Chair and served us well when we awarded this, and now Colleen Sellens is our current chair, and so Colleen is going to give us a little bit more information and tell us who our winner is.
Good morning. I think we're still morning. I'll try to be brief here. As Megan said, I am Colleen Sellens, and I'm the current chair of the Environmental Advisory Board, and I'm here with my predecessor, Graham Smith, to talk, and we are here to present the 2020 Environmental Advisory Award for Climate Action and Transportation. This was supposed to be presented at the 50th anniversary of Earth Day last year here at Dix Park, but things got interrupted a little bit. And so, but we are excited to be able to present this award actually at an event that is celebrating a transportation milestone for the city of Raleigh. So this is a great opportunity to do that. We need action across the spectrum in the city to reduce greenhouse emissions. And you've heard a lot about how individuals can take responsibility for doing things, and sometimes that's hard to understand how you as a person can affect such a large issue, but you can. Individuals can play their part by getting on one of the new buses, or replacing a drive with a walk or a bike ride, or get on an e-bike or a scooter. There are lots more options and opportunities that we have to go greener here and transit as we transit around Raleigh. I actually walked here this morning. I did not ride a bike, which would have been an appropriate action, but we need to be able to do all these things safely. And so Oaks and Spokes has helped Raleigh be safer for cyclists, which gets people out of their cars and onto bikes. And that's why the EAB would like to recognize Oaks and Spokes for this award today. Oaks and Spokes is a nonprofit advocacy organization that's focusing on creating a transportation system that is safe for all users of all ages and abilities. Since 2016, Oaks and Spokes has led on advocacy efforts for our protected bike facilities to connect residents in our downtown core. That's one of the major issues. People need to feel safe on their bikes when they're in traffic. So a protected and connected bike network that is safe for everyone will get more people out of their cars, reducing carbon emissions from transportation, which is the city's second largest capacity of emissions. So getting people out, that's all of us getting out on our bikes and on our feet to get out there as we transit around Raleigh. Oaks and Spokes volunteers have engaged residents through pop-up demonstration events. We have one of these out here, and education and outreach for all ages and abilities. By working in these two spheres, they ensure that people know the rules of the road, understand safety equipment, feel safe riding their bikes, and are protected with more visibility and with infrastructure. The EAB recognizes the considerable work done by Oaks and Spokes to advance sustainable transportation solutions at our cities, and the many hours that their all-volunteer crew have put into making protected bike facilities a reality for Raleigh. So we thank them for making the Raleigh safer, healthier, and more sustainable, and we would like to have Nick come up to get the award.